one more thing I want to try to record here. I'm not sure what that is. I don't think there was anything connected to it. That looks a lot like a grease fitting nipple. It doesn't look much like a hose should attach to that. But nothing was connected to that on my vehicle. I don't know what that's for, but go ahead and acknowledge it. As I've mentioned a couple times, I like to try to keep the vacuum hoses connected where they go, because I don't trust my memory. Even with video, it can get confusing. So this is the carburetor, the intake plenum, the mechanical fuel pump. I've equipped this vehicle with a low volume, low pressure electric fuel pump close to the tank. Let me explain why. All the fuel to this carbureted vehicle gets into the engine bay, which of course is sealed up. So this is like a hot box. This is like an oven. So in the summer when I would park this, I would end up with vapor lock when I tried to crank it 15 to 20 minutes later. Because all the heat just collects here. There's no circulating fan to move it out. So I put, a little further back, I'm not sure you can see it, but I put a low volume, low pressure pump to clear out the lines on hot days, and it works beautifully. And I think I only spent $20, $25 maybe doing it. So yeah, soon I'm going to start replacing all these vacuum lines, and I'll do them one at a time because, again, I don't trust my memory. I get confused too easily. All right, I've taken off the intake. I want to do a little bit of documenting. I think I'm going to take the wiring harness off as well to make it easier for painting of the block. It's bare and naked and rusted. One of the things that I find kind of odd here is the RTV. They used RTV. This is the fuel pump connection on the Midget, and they used RTV in this, and it looks terrible. Got a little oil in there too. We need to take that off and check into it, but it wasn't leaking, but it sure looks nasty. So yeah, I'm going to probably pull the wiring harness off. This is a temperature sensor, connects to a sensor up under the bottom. One here, this one is already disconnected from there. Starter, signal wire, and power wire, and that's about it. There's really not much. Distributor here, and of course this goes to the chassis. There's really not a whole lot here as far as wiring harness goes on a carbureted EF. For the professional mechanics out there, have you ever seen a wiring harness on a street legal automobile this simple? Oh my gosh, I love it. There's a wiring loom for the transmission, but it's about as simple. But yeah, there's the engine. That's the whole thing. That's it. Let's have a quick look at the intake ports. If I can get the light right. Yeah, no. Yeah, they look pretty clean. Gosh, I've certainly seen worse on far newer vehicles. Just hard to get this light in the right place, but yeah, not bad. Also, this is of course the water pump. I spun it around and it kicked out a little bit of coolant a moment ago. There we go. But that's your water pump pulley and the crank pulley. Air conditioner drive belt, water pump drive belt. Got new belts for this as well. I'm getting ready to find top dead center on cylinder number 1. I assume that this is an inspection port that will let me see the timing marks, and there's a plug here that may, I'm going to take both of these out in a second, but that may simply be for an adjustment to the timing belt idler arm, but we're going to find out. That one I'm sure has some marks behind it that will be helpful. I believe that is my timing mark. I've been through the the whole thing, and that's the only one that has a dot. So I believe I've got it set to top dead center. This plastic piece just disintegrated into little giblets when I tried to take it out. I can't quite see in there well enough to know what that is, but this does look like a place to check for top dead center. Here's a little more information about top dead center. The crank pulley does have a mark, and the timing cover, which is metal on this vehicle, has an arrow. But be aware that it is possible, you know, the camshaft is rotating at half the speed of the crank, so you can line that up but still not be at top dead center of number one. I believe you also need to keep going. If that's the case, keep going clockwise until you get back to it. Oh, I'm a little too far. Oops. Oop. Hard to hit it just right. Way off. Yeah, because now we should be able to see the dot, which we do. Okay, so be aware if you just line up that mark, you still have to check your cam drive to see if you have the dot lined up. So that's top dead center on cylinder number one. Okay, some other midget owners have had the YouTube videos that they seem to have the same experience with me. This crank bolt is not super hard to get off on this vehicle. I was able to just wedge a large screwdriver in between the bottom of the block and one of the spokes of the pulley and hit it with a ratchet, and it comes off pretty easily. It is a counterclockwise, so the normal way. Here's my first look under the valve cover of the Daihatsu Midget II. Not a whole lot of carbon buildup, but it's decent. I have this off. Part of the service that's going to happen here will be valve lash adjustment. That one's lifted. That one's loose. That one can be checked. Anyway, I'll put a socket on the crank, slowly turn it over until I unload the valves. And that reminds me, I've got to find the specification for clearance cold, but that's what it looks like underneath. Here's another thing that I think is interesting. That is the push rod for the fuel pump. It's driven off the camshaft. You can see the lobe there. There's a shiny spot where this push rod drives the fuel pump. It's kind of fun. But that's what drives it. And there is the timing cover removed. A lot of schmutz in there from all the degreaser I've been spraying on this. I'm pretty sure that that is not the original water pump. Yay. And the belt, frankly, it looks pretty good. Must have been changed, but I couldn't know that. We've got a key in there for that we need to make sure we don't lose when everything comes apart, and we're going to replace this water pump as well, and the idler pulley as well. Yeah, that's a newer idler pulley. That is not the OEM original. Clearly, timing belt and water pump have been done on this vehicle, but I couldn't know and I couldn't take the chance. So, yeah, the belt looks really good. But better safe than sorry with a broken engine. So, yeah, get that water pump out. Well, first I'm going to clean this up a little bit. There's some schmutz from my spraying earlier. I'll clean that up and take the water pump out. This cover, the excuse me, the cam drive had to come off as well, plus this cover, because I am also doing cam seal, which is going to be up under here, and then front and rear crank seals to just try to avoid ever having to pull this thing back out while I own it. They're not leaking, but they might one day, so let's put new ones in there while it's taken apart. Here are some notes on getting the crank drive pulley off. I put a, let's see, so this bolt just fits in there and hits the bottom of the crank. And to pull it off easily, I just put in, let me back up. That is, these bolt holes are M5 0.8 thread pitch. So I just got a 2-inch bolt, ran it in there, grabbed this is actually the alternator tension bracket, and just kind of put the, excuse me, put the end of the tensioner bracket on the head of that bolt and pried, and it just kind of slid off. So M5 0.8 thread pitch, and you can slide that off. I couldn't do it with the original crank bolt in there because this flange is so wide that it blocks access to those two threaded areas. Here are the part numbers. This is supposed to be for the camshaft on the Daihatsu, and the front crank seal. There are your part numbers, I do believe. I think I ended up with 2 crank seals instead of a rear main seal, so I've ordered another one, and it's still about 2 weeks out. But these are the things that we will be replacing on the front of the engine. So these are the 2 seals on the front. This is the crank seal, that's the camshaft seal. These will be replaced. A little later I'll take the transmission off and do the rear main seal as well. But hopefully the camera's picking that up. I do believe that front crank seal was put in with RTV. You may remember from the transmission, I was perplexed. There's RTV again. Interesting. Seal removal. I'm sure there is a better way to do it than what I do, but this works for me. I take a small drill and a very small wood screw, drill a very small, gentle, careful hole into the metal housing of these, run a screw in, and then pull on it. It gets it out pretty well. You've got to be careful if you do that, because if you nick the surface of the cam, all bets are off. So the new one is ready to go in. I'm going to give it a little lubricant, some oil, and slide that joker in. Got it started. In my opinion, this is pretty handy, having a plate, a retaining plate. Oops. To give you something safe to tap on to drive it in. I can't do it with the camera in my hand, but that's the plan. Yeah, that worked well. I thought better of it and put the retaining nuts on this plate, which held it when I tapped it. I just took a socket and tapped my way around to get it in flush, and there's the new seal. Same for the front crank seal. I do see red RTV around that. That is so weird. Yeah, weird. There's the old one and the new one. And I think that I'll be able to do the same thing here. This is the belt keeper. Keeps the belt from walking. I think I can use that to tap this new seal in.